I got you on the So I have you on the maintenance list. We'll get to you.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Today is Daf Kufches Tes
Father's Day.
Father's Day. So 10 lines from the top. This is where we left off. So it says over there.
What Daf? Where we started?
Kufches.
Oh, I got the wrong one.
Sure.
No.
10 lines from the top. Amar Rav Yehuda. Says Rav Yehuda, Hakole leigle gafa v'afilu miyasme. Everyone has to go ahead and contribute towards the town security, the locking of the gates. But the Rabbanan do not. My time was the reason. Rabbanan also. So the Rabbanan, few Rabbanan, they don't need extra watching because their Torah should watch over them. The Karya, the Pazia, the few Rabbanan. However, it's for digging wells, then even the Rabbanan, they even have to go ahead and contribute to that. However, lo emana deloy nafka uchluza, right? But that's only talking about if they don't go ahead and actually dig it. But however, if it's for the actual digging of the wells, then no, the Rabbanan are not included. Why? The Rabbanan because they're not. It's not kavadik for them to go ahead and dig wells. When it comes to the blockage of the river, Tasai Messiah Eloi. If it's upriver, so then everyone benefits. Everyone's below that area. Therefore, everybody has to go ahead and assist that. And the people on the bottom, right? So they obviously will always be assisting. However, the chilufa b'maya demitra, and actually, it's the opposite when it comes to discharging the water. In other words, that is when something is on the bottom. So that discharge affects the people above it, right? But to go ahead and discharge the water on top, right, for that to come off, that it does not affect the people on the bottom. So the chiyuv of Maya Demitra, that's the water to run off. And Tanya Mihachi, as we see in this brisa, so if there are 5 gardens that go ahead and they get supplied water from the same spring, if upriver. There's a blockage, so Kulam Masaknos, all of them are responsible to go ahead and clear it. Email Yaina, if it's with the Yaina, Nim says, so if it's on the top, so it turns to the bottom person, he has to go ahead and fix it in Kulam with all the people. In other words, number 5 has to fix it. It's by 1, 2, 3, or 4. However, if the blockage is only by 5, it only benefits for him. So therefore, he's the one responsible. So too, you have 5 yards that their waters, there's like a sewage or whatever that runs off of the same pipe. And if it's blocked off, so all of them are affected. The drainage by the bottom one, because everyone else's will flood if the bottom one is not properly prepared. So it turns out that the one who's the most upstream, he has to go ahead and fix that as glum because that will affect him. But if the block is only by him, then only it affects him, and therefore he has to go ahead and do his own. Omar Shmuel Hayman de Achzik Barkasa Denara Chatzifa Havi. Person who goes and he says, you know what, I'm going to take this area, this Hefker area along the river bank. Such a person is he's a mechutzav. He's a mechutzav because people normally need by the public river area to go ahead and load and unload their cargo, and therefore he's a mechutzav. However, but you know he's mechutzav, right? He's not a great person, but l'maisa you can't force him to leave. You know, however, nowadays the kalkasi parsi, but now, what was that?
Waterfront property.
Yeah, but nowadays, right, when people would take even Hefker property, and they would take this land as their own, and it was ownerless until now, and then the Persians would say, fine, you can do it as long as you pay the head tax for that land, your real estate taxes. So therefore, now they have a right to it. So Kani, they would acquire that area. So excuse me, Bahadi, the Kakasi Parsi Kalilacha Ad Malit Susya Maya. They say, okay, you can go ahead and acquire the land up until basically the height of the horse's head into the water. Saluki Nami Masal being Linale. So the people they would acquire that area, but they wouldn't use the area between the rivers. So if someone tries to come between the area of the land and between that and the river, then they can go ahead and remove such a person. And Amarav, hi Mad Afsig Beni Achi, Beni Shufi. A person goes ahead and he buys land. Good morning, Yigal. I see you just joined around the third of the way towards the bottom. Last few skinny lines in the page on the Kuf Ches. So it says Amarav Yehuda, Amarav Haimad Aksi, Beni Aki, Beni Shufi. A person goes ahead and takes land between, let's say, two brothers or two partners. So such a person buys land in between. Chatzife Happy. He's a Chatzife, right? The people eventually we're going to go ahead and the brothers are going to buy it, so it'll be all next to each other, or partners we're going to buy it, so it'll be next to each other. So the person takes it in the middle is Mechutzav. However, but however, they are not able to go ahead and force him to move. No, we could go ahead and move it even for being but if he's not exactly next door, then the halachas of Dine de Bar Metzra, which we're going to get into today, there we don't remove him. The Dine de Bar Metzra is basically if a person is a next door neighbor, as we soon see. So there's an obligation on the buyer, right? Not necessarily so much on the seller, but more on the buyer that he should do the right thing and allow the next door neighbor, right? Because if someone wants to go ahead and basically, let's say, plow more will be easier if you do two fields next to each other than a field here than a field there. So it's easier if they're next to each other. So therefore, right, it makes sense to now to allow them together. Now this is would be true only if all things
Obligation on the buyer.
Right. We'll soon see. The svara is going to be that the buyer should do the right thing and let the neighbor buy it. So obviously the neighbor is the one who's causing it. So the neighbor sells it. So now if I live next door to Levi, right, and Levi sold to you, okay, so really you sold to me. So the obligation is really for you now to sell to me for that price. Even though in the first place, Levi shouldn't have even gone to you. No, it's right. So that's what we'll soon see, because there's an obligation, and so we'll see it depends on. But it's normally, but this is assuming that all things being equal. But for whatever reason, it's not all things being equal. For whatever reason, there's an advantage of selling to somebody else than the neighbor. Then the person selling doesn't really have to go ahead and take any sort of quote unquote hardship in order to sell to the neighbor, as opposed to someone who's not adjacent. So in the hard deal, first wide line, Amri, they said, if it's between brothers or partners, even because it's din of bar mitzvah, we do go ahead and remove it. Mishum shenemar, the pasuk says, because the buyer really should do the right thing and allow the next door neighbor to buy it and not he himself do it. So therefore, he should allow the next door neighbor to do it. So let's say he goes and consults him. So Amrle, he says, look, I want to go ahead and sell my property. So we'll have Levi. Actually, it almost is, right? Aren't you like neighbors growing up, right?
Growing up, we were next door neighbors.
Right. So that's what I'm going to say. So it's a good example I chose, right? So Levi and Eddie, right? Neighbors. So let's say Eddie is going to go ahead and sell, right? So Asimlach, so he goes ahead and he consults with Levi. So Amrle, he's up and go ahead and sell. All right, I want to go ahead and sell. Amrle seals up, and so Levi says, "Okay, enjoy. Right, what do you want from me? Okay, go sell your land." So does he have to go ahead and make a kinyan from Levi to make like an official approval that any buyer who buys it, all of a sudden Levi won't be able to come with a time and says, "Hey, well, you shouldn't have bought it. I didn't know that it was for sale. I would have bought it." So
it's the buyer, right? Hazel Isbun is it the seller saying I want to sell, or is it a buyer saying I want to buy the property right next door? Do you have any issues with that?
You're saying someone's approaching someone who has a big lot against him.
Someone approaches Eddie and says, "Hey, there's a lot of selling. I'd like to buy it. Are you gonna buy it, or can I just go buy it?"
Versus he's selling to somebody else,
and then Eddie says to me, "Yeah, go buy it," and then I buy it, and then Eddie says, "Whoa, what's going on?"
So the buyer's going to approve. Right. So I mean, either way, right. So, but either way, it's basically asking the neighbor to forgive his right. Of doing it. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. He says, right, I'm going to go ahead and buy it. So he says, okay, go ahead and buy it. Right.
I won't cause you any problems.
Right. Someone Zavan was going to sell or buy it. Was it? Go buy it, right? May I go buy it? Yeah, okay, yeah, you're right. All right. So he says, want to go, but the point is that person, the neighbor, is now basically saying, I'm good with you buying it. I'm not going to complain. So should he make a kinyan or not? So Ravina says he can't go ahead. He doesn't need to make it go ahead and kinyan. He's good enough. And the go ahead and make a kinyan. The hilchasa and the halacha is go ahead and basically make a kinyan, some sort of suit or something to recognize that he's giving up his official rights as a neighbor. Now, now that we say you should go ahead and make a kinyan, unless you just told him verbally, but he never made a kinyan. Now, also, so the guy, he doesn't have official, official permission. So therefore, the neighbor can come and knock on his door and say, you know what, this is, I should have been given the first rights and I didn't allow it, therefore it's mine. So he can go ahead and take it from the buyer, give him the money back. So Yaakov, let's say it goes up or down, b'shusay. It goes up and down in his rishus. We'll soon see what that means. The buyer's rishus. So let's say the person goes ahead and buys the land for 100. V'shavi masan is worth 200, but he only bought it for 100. So if Chazina we see, so if the guy was selling it, even though it was worth 200 to anybody who came along, he just needed to get the heck out of there for $100, then the guy, basically, then the neighbor gives $100 is what he paid for to the buyer. Because basically the buyer buying the land adjacent to his home was like his shaliach. The shaliach put out $100 for land. Now giving him his $100, he's made whole. I get my land. However, v'ilo, but if not, let's say the reason why he sold to 100 as opposed to 200 was because it was his good friend and he was doing him as being a nice guy. But anyone else would have sold for 200. So then, v'ilo yayvle masa v'shakule. But if not, then you would have to pay him 200 because that's what he would have gone ahead and paid. Zavim b'mason. Let's say it was sold for 200. It was only worth 100. So now we can say no. We say okay. Well, the guy we said earlier, the guy was acting as a shliach. So now, okay, the shliach paid $200. So you got to pay the guy $200. So you're supposed to be shliach to do me something good. But doing something good is not paying 200 for something that's worth 100. Therefore, I'm only giving you 100. So Amar Lei Markashisha Braid Rav Chisda Rav Ashi. Hafiam in Hardia. This is said Hardia Mishum Rav Nachman. Ein Oina the Karkos. Every land, every parcel is unique upon with its location, and therefore, if it was paid, if it was $200 was paid, I don't care if you blew in the face till you tell me it's only worth 100. But there is no such thing as being ripped off the land, and that was the market value, and therefore you got to go ahead and pay 200. So let's say someone goes ahead and try and picture, let's say the Brady Bunch intro. Someone's got 9 fields and they decide to buy Alice right in the middle. Now, around the side, if you picture, 9 squares. So there's neighbors on the side for all the other fields on the sides, right? So the neighbors would have first option in any of those other fields, any of the 8 that go around. They have, neighbors all over. But the middle field, there is no neighbor. So let's say somebody else buys it. So why was that field sold to this stranger? Chazina, we see if it's, let's say, choice land, it's the top land, and therefore maybe that's why he's selling, because he can get top dollar for a parcel, or maybe it was Zibaris, or it was the worst land that he didn't want to work anymore, so he sold, and that's why he sold that particular piece of land. So Zvina, then it makes sense why he sold that parcel of land. However, Vilo, but if it's not, then he Reuben Kamarim, then maybe he's trying to pull shtick. Why? What's going to happen? The guy's saying, well, if you was selling all 9 properties, so your neighbors like, they're going to say they want first shots. I have an idea. Let me buy the middle property, which they won't have a claim against. And then when you want to sell any of the other adjacent properties, I'm now a neighbor, and I'll call in the Dina de Bar Metzra. So therefore, if it's just a regular Beinonist property, then we say over there, you're asking, maybe it's another thing, yeah. So then we say in that case that they're trying to do haroma in order not to sell the ravers, and therefore we can make that original sale null and void, and be able, and the original neighbors can be able to go ahead and buy the lands. Matana, top line on Kuches Amad Beis. Matana, lesbe mishum din bar metzra. So when it comes to giving a gift, there is no din bar metzra. If I want to go ahead and give a gift, I can give a gift. However, on my Meimar, because of the achrayus, he's b'shum din bar metzra. However, all of a sudden, he writes a star that says, and if someone goes ahead and takes land from you, then the responsibility is of me. Then it all of a sudden becomes very similar to a sale, and now it has a din of bar metzra.
It's interesting because a few lines ago, there was the question of it's normally sold for 200, but I give it to this guy for 100. How much does the guy have to pay?
Right.
It's matana, it shouldn't even be subject to $2.
Right. So yeah, right. But I think it's just like gzera because once you put in achrayas,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So then it's like it's
So
like a sale.
the guy gave a field
Yeah.
as a matana,
Right.
but it had a lien on it.
Well,
Or
if it has a lien, he's taking responsibility. No, if he just gives it to him, says this is yours, enjoy, or whatever happens to it, right? Someone takes it away, so then that's not on me, right? Who cares? It was a gift. You paid zero. You didn't get ripped off, right? So then there's no dinner answer. But if he all of a sudden he gives him a chrayas, a warranty, if someone goes ahead and takes the land from you, I'll give you a different gift. Then all of a sudden, or I'll give you, I owe you money in lieu of that. Then all of a sudden that's similar to a sale, and therefore a sales have to go through the neighbors first. Machar kol nechasav liyachad less ba mishum dinar. So a guy is going ahead and selling. He wants to just do one sale for his entire estate, all his properties all over. So he doesn't have to go ahead and sell one to this neighbor and the others. He can sell to one buyer. All right. So therefore, once again, we said dinar metzra applies when all is equal. But if all is not equal, in other words, he wants this parcel because he's a neighbor only in this one, but not the other ones, then it's not dinar metzra. Now, let's say a person sells all the stuff to somebody. So let's say Levi sold all his property to me. So Eddie can't have a claim because we said there's no dinar metzra. He sold all his estate here, right, and different areas. But now, let's say I want to go ahead and sell it, the piece next to Eddie, back to Levi. Can Eddie go ahead and say, "Whoa, I'm the neighbor still, right? So Levi, you sold yours, you gave up your rights, right? You're no longer here anymore. Therefore, if you're selling to anybody, you got to sell to me, the neighbor." So the Baal because Levi already has established living in that place, and therefore I can sell it back to Levi, and Eddie can't claim, "Hey, I'm a neighbor." So in other words, Levi is not considered to be an outside individual. Zavin Miyakov is Zavin Miyakov. We'll explain these two cases. It's to a guy. Les ba mishum dinar metzra. There is no halacha zera metzra. Zavin Miyakov. If you bought it from a guy, and I was the guy next door, and then the guy sold it to a Jew, you can't have the Jew neighbors say, "Hey, it's mine." Why? Because he could say, "You know what? I did you a favor by driving the lion out. You no longer have a goyish neighbor, therefore it's mine, not yours." And Zavin Miyakov, if you go ahead and sell it to an akum, so akum vade lav bardas. He said, "Yashav toki." If the buyer is an akum, right? In other words, the Jewish seller living next door to a Jew, and he sells it to a guy. So, like we said earlier, right, doing the right thing is really upon the buyer. I know you bought the property, but the other guy really bought the property to sell it to him. So there is no chiyuv on the akum to go ahead and do b'asisa v'yashar hatov and give it to and sell it to the neighbor for the same price. However, the guy who goes ahead and sells it to a guy instead of his Jewish neighbor, shmute vada mashninle, we do put him a cherem ad the kabbalah until he's makal upon himself. Called ein say the asile machmaseh. Until he basically says, "You know what? Any claim or anything that bad that happens because of your neighbors is on me." Once he accepts it, then he puts an akum next to him, and then any future problems are on the seller. Mashkanasa. Let's say a mashkon, a collateral. I go ahead and I borrow money from Randy. Now, so Randy says, "Yo, how you gonna pay me back?" I said, "Take this, this field of mine. That will be your collateral. It's next door to Avrami." And let's say I default on the loan. So Avrami can say, "Well, he can't sell you the land, Mr. Lender, right? Because I'm the neighbor. I have the right to buy it." Mashkanasa, les bevishum dinar metzra. We tell the neighbor, "Be quiet. There is no dinar metzra." Why? Damar Ravashi. So I'm really sabed the masimach. So this was the elder son in the masimach. Yeah, my mashkanasa. What is the meaning of the word mashkanasa? the shchuna gabe, right, from Sheichein, right, to reside over here. So my nafkamina, why? Okay, you're residing in the shchuna gabe. So my nafkamina ladina. So the bar mitzvah, and I was dina the bar mitzvah. In other words, basically, it's like Randy already lives in he lives where the collateral is. Therefore, he's like already the owner before the neighbor can go ahead and make a claim.
So only that he could also buy houses.
We'll soon see. We'll see. Good question. Right.
Buy a house, we're gonna buy the neighbor's house to make it a.
Right,
bigger house.
very common thing that's done, right? Very good. All right, so let's see. Good question. So let's say I want to go ahead and sell some lands that were farther away to buy something closer, or berav illegal or I want to sell something bad and to get something buy better land. In other words, I need the cash now. But if I have to go ahead and deal with the neighbor, it's going to take a long time. Less love should do dinar metzger. There is no dinar metzger because once again, I don't have to put myself in a worse situation by selling to the neighbor because I need the money now. Or the cargo, the mizayin, or the kura. Let's say I needed to sell it immediately for the purpose of paying the head tax, or mizayin to go ahead and sustain. Let's say either katanim or an amana, or the kvura, or for burial. Lesba mishum dinar metzger. We have no time. We need to go ahead and get the money now. Therefore, there is no dinar metzger. They said right. They used to go ahead and have, let's say, 30-day auctions. Right, they post up signs for an auction in order to get the top dollar. But when you don't have 30 days to wait, like the head tax is due, or mezainas or feeding, right, or kfura, so then you can go ahead and sell that of the assignment even without to get the top dollar without this formal auction. And however, let's say a woman or a yisaimim or a shutfer are able to go ahead and buy the parcel, so they don't often have the opportunity to buy. So let's say they were the buyers, they don't have to go ahead and give up their recent purchase to the neighbor. Right, so those who were the people of the city, so Rashi brings down here, right, so different understandings over here. So we'll go one mahalach is, right, those people, not the immediate next door neighbors, but people that live in the town. People that live in the town or people that live farther away in the Sada, so those who live in the city, right, those neighbors take precedence over the others. Let's say a neighbor, someone who lives in the neighborhood down the street, or a Talmid Chacham, who do you sell it to? Talmid Chacham, you sell it to the Talmid Chacham. He comes first. Let's say a relative versus a Talmid Chacham. Talmid Chacham, you give it to Talmid Chacham first. What about a neighbor versus a relative? What is the halacha there? So Toshma, right? Better to have a good neighbor than a distant brother. Therefore, you got a neighbor there, then treat him well by selling it to him. Now, Hani Zuzi Tavi, but Hani Zuzi Tikuli. Let's say you have money, which is a good currency, right? I want to go ahead and sell it. So one guy have someone outside is going to go ahead and give me cash, and somebody else is going to give me Dogecoin or some cryptocurrency, whatever it is, right? So I don't, and one of the monies I prefer, I could spend it anywhere, right? Or one of the monies, excuse me, one of the monies are what's it called? Are a better weight. So less baby dinar metzger. Those all things are not equal in that case, and therefore I don't have to go ahead and subject myself to something I didn't want by selling to the neighbor. Or hani tzari, hani shari. So let's say package money or loose money. I don't want to lose the money. So less baby dinar metzger. If it's easier, if it's all enclosed, then it's easier not to lose, and therefore I prefer that. Therefore, once again, there is no dinar metzger. All right, Ezel v'ashrech v'aisizu say. Let's say the neighbor says, I'm going to go ahead and sell. Do you want to buy it? And the guy says, oh, let me go ahead and make some sales. I'll sell some copiers, right? That's what I do. I'll sell some copiers and I'll bring it. I'll bring money. I'll have the money then. Loy not shrinan lay. We do not go ahead and expect the seller to go ahead and wait for the guy to go ahead and make the money in order to buy the land next door.
Way to get a mortgage.
So right, so cash is different than a mortgage contingency. All right. No, well, that's not even this yet. This is even someone who says, I'm going to go ahead and be matriach. In other words, I have to go ahead and work for it, right? Because the Gemara says you don't have to really wait for that. But let's say Amar, he says, Amar Azil Isis, I'm going to go ahead and bring the money. I'm going to get you the money. Chayzino, we see if it's someone who means if it's someone who has the means and we trust and he can go ahead and bring the money, then we wait for him. Then we wait for the neighbor. However, right, assume it's the same time, be low, but if he's not someone's believable, then then we do not go ahead and wait for him.
Subjective.
Let's say someone has a land and basically a long-term lease, someone the house on the land. So eventually they'll be off. So So let's say the person wants to go ahead and sublease the house. So the person who owns the land can go ahead and basically he gets first rights on the house. However, but the owner of the house does not get first rights on the land because once again, the owner of the house is not there permanently. And in a similar case, so let's say the land belongs to one, and let's say a person leased a palm tree and he gets all the dates or whatever they come from it for a long period of time. So right? So the owner of the land, if the person who wants to go ahead and lease out to somebody else the palm tree, so he gets first dibs. However, the person who owns the palm tree does not go ahead and get first rights on the land because once again, his tenure there, his operations there is only temporary. So let's say one person wants to go ahead and buy it for the purpose of a house. And let's say the neighbor wants to go ahead and plant. Right. So Alan, you asked before. Let's say is planting different than he wants the next house next door. So Yishuv Adif Veles Ba Mishum Dina de Metzra, right? So Yishuv is the most important, and therefore,
He actually lives.
if the guy was gonna go ahead and build a house, and the neighbor wanted it for for planting, and the other guy wanted it for living comes first. There is no Dina de Metzra. Now, if Moshenisa or Richva the Dikla, so now here's another case which I wanted to, which addresses Alan's question. So let's say there's a strip in between that like a fence or something that's blocking that doesn't connect the two, right? A Richva the Dikla or the row of trees. So chazina if you could have one even bushel or something connecting the two, then then it's considered to be like one large field, and therefore the halacha din is however low. But if not, then the din will not apply. So let's say, for instance, it was across the street or it was an alley in between, so it's not considered to be. Well, maybe that's different because the block together, but then it's not considered to be one continuous field, and then there doesn't necessarily mean there's a din of Metzra. Now, Hani Dalid B'nei Metzrani to Kadim Chad Vinayut. So let's say you have four people. Just imagine like the picture frames. Those of you at art school, or even the Gemara, there's a picture on the side of what's going on there. We'll see in a minute. So someone has a parcel on the north, someone has a parcel on the south, and east or west, depending if you're facing me or looking at me, right? So you have there, and then there's someone with a big piece of land in the middle. So one of the neighbors cop up the guy with the land in the middle. He buys it first. He can go ahead and do it. Right? He can go ahead and it's the Kodim Chaim, everyone goes up his ovens. He's purchased a good purchase. However, but they all came at the same time. Then Paul Gabe Be Karnzil. Then basically they divide it into four. So how do you divide it into four? Basically, and you chop it up like that picture looks like four triangles, and everyone takes. So the guy in the bottom will have the bottom, where the base is at the bottom, facing his, and the guy on the side will have basically where the base of the triangle faces his, so on and so forth. Therefore, each one gets the field that is adjacent to them. Fine. That was yesterday's daf, and now we will start today's daf. So one who goes ahead and is mekabel a field for less than 7 years, he leases it. So you should not go ahead and plant flax because that is very hard on the field for 7 years. It draws out all its nutrients, and therefore it will sort of cause damage. If I only have it for 5 years, but I do something that's damaging for 7 years, then I will not be able to. Because segment also that I can't go ahead and start chopping off the branches of the large sycamore trees because those take also 7 years. However, let's say it was for 7 years, then then he could go ahead and do it the first year because it takes 7 years. By the end of his lease, then it will be back to normal. No, just coincidentally, that's how long physically those take.
This caused the Civil War. because the South kept going north.
Yeah.
for Burning their land.
Uh-huh.
They kept going north.
To
and
take
when they
that.
got north, they couldn't use slaves.
Uh-huh.
Watch it.
And that's how the whole war started, because they didn't listen to the culture.
Uh-huh.
Aggression, like the rebel behind us.
Yeah.
The mothers, they
Yeah.
didn't listen to the mothers.
Yeah.
They told us.
So, right. I guess they're releasing it. Sabar Abaye. So says Abaye. However, Shevach Sigma Yeshlo. So you can't go ahead and rip the branches off. But let's say the branches grew. Now they're more valuable, right? Go ahead and sell. There's more wood there. So can I go ahead and say, hey, your field is now more valuable. I didn't cut off the sycamore branches. So therefore, the value increased by $200. Give me my portion of Shevach. I didn't cut anything off, but your land is improved, right? It was worth $1,000 before. Now it's worth $1,100. So give me the difference, right? Give me some of that. Rav, so we say, so Amr Abai, so the Shevach Sigma Yeshlo, he does get the Shevach. That is Abai. Rav Omar, Afilu b'Shevach Shigma Nami Elo. He doesn't even get that. Goodbye. So Rava says you do not get. So let's see. Let's say so a person is mekabel a field from his friend. And in time, and also time his leases. All that says Shamin Loi, we evaluate for him. What do you mean evaluate for him? So my love, Shamin Loi Shigma. I is Shevach Shigma is a Kasha and Rava, because the Bai says 1 second. Rava Marfilu Shigma Nami Elo, right. So Abai says you get, and Rava says you don't get. It's a Kasha and Rava. Gemara says no, it's Shamin Loi Yarkov Asilko. No, it's the vegetables where you go ahead and evaluate. Gemara says Yarkov Asilko, not Karban Ishko. I don't need. If I lease a field for vegetables and fruits and vegetables, so I'll harvest them, I'll take them with me, and I'll take them. What do I have to wait for you to assess the value and then you give me the difference? It's mine. So right? And it was not time to go ahead and sell yet, and therefore it would have been a big loss to go ahead and cut them off earlier. So therefore you leave them on and then you evaluate how much it was. So Toshma, come and listen. A similar a challenge. So let's say a person leases a field from his friend, and all of a sudden comes Shemitah. So Shamila. Then we evaluate from the woods. Where it says Shvis, Mika Mafkia Or. I understand why is he getting kicked off? Because of Shvis, right? Doesn't make sense, right? Yovel came, right? Yovel, and then it returns. Shamila, we evaluate from him. And still Yovel, Mi Mafkia Kablanos. All right. The tzmisus, right? So who says, so if a person leases a field and it goes through Yovel, it doesn't go back to the owner if I'm leasing the land. If I have a 10-year lease and Yovel comes through it, so Yovel comes through it, it doesn't go back. Yovel only says if you sell something forever, there is no forever, it goes back to the owner and Yovel. But if I lease it for 10 years, if I lease it for 60 years or whatever it is, it shouldn't go back. So that maybe means one who buys a field from his friend, then Yovel arrives. So he bought it. Now Yovel comes. Then we evaluate it. So now we add it on. Now so it says apparently clearly that we evaluate mashma that you do get the improvements of the sycamore tree, right? The non-fruit bearing trees. Now if we're talking about you evaluate for him for the vegetation, so silka v'yarka v'yovel hefkeru. So we don't go ahead and evaluate so he can get the amount, because don't forget, during Yovel, it's Hefker, right? It's nobody's. It's not the guy who grew it, and it's not the landowner. It's Hefker, right? Elalav, rather it must be Shevach Shigma, right? Rather it must be the Shevach of the Shigma, and therefore it's Kash and Rava. So Tirgim Abaye, I'll leave it the Rava. So oftentimes you see this, that even though the Bar Kluksa, he says Abaye wants to be right over Rava, but he says Lamaisa, Abaye says, if I were Rava, I could just answer like this. Shani Hasam over there is different. The Amar the pasuk says V'yatza Memker. So it says over there. Where's the pasuk? It says V'yatza Mimkar bias, right? Memkar. So Memker Chayzev Shevach Eino Chayzev. It only says the house goes back, but not the Shevach. So therefore, the pasuk clearly states, right, that the Shevach is Eino Chayzev. It's just the field itself, the house itself. The Gemara says, okay, if that's the pasuk, V'nigbar Minei. Let's go ahead and learn it out. Just like over there, you don't get any shevach, so to the end of at least you shouldn't get any shevach. So the Gemara says no. Over there, it's a full 100% legit sale, and the Torah says that it goes back to the seller. As opposed to here, it's a lease. It's not considered to be the same. Rav Papa Kabil Ara Las Pasta. So Rav Papa, so he had a field that he took it for to grow as pasta, right? So that over there is referring to basically like animal feed. He grew something which is low maintenance, a low value, but something easy enough to go ahead. That was what he agreed to go ahead and grow on it. So Kad Chubai told him. And then some saplings grew over there, right? Become a salik. So when Rav Papa was leaving, he had these now new little tree saplings that grew there. So Amarlu, Papa Shivcha, give me the shavach, give me the improvements of these saplings that now grew on your land. So Amarle, Rav Shibra Ravidi, because remember, he didn't grow for the purposes of these saplings, but they just happened to improve the land. So therefore, you now got new wood on your land. I improved your land. So Amarle, Rav Shibra Ravidi, Rav Papa, Elamiat, according to you, Dikla. The Elim Hachanami the boy Marshif. I understand. So if one goes over there, that he rented a land with a palm tree and it got thicker, so he has to go ahead and give him the shavach in that case. I'm really no over there's different hasam lavadai to the hachinachis, right? Over there, right? That was in other words, he did it for the palm tree for the dates. He didn't do it for the shevach. In other words, the shevach was just a byproduct of something of the land, but he did it when he leased it. It was for the fruits. Over here, right? But over here it was different. Over here I didn't do it for the fruits. I did it right. I was going to grow the something else, and this grew. So come on. So who do you want to say like Rav Papa? That you want to go ahead and take the shevach? Want to be like Abaye, right? So over there is no loss, right? In the case of where nothing else, there was no loss. But over here, I could have grown more as pasta, right? And I couldn't because this other saplings were growing there. So therefore, the saplings really took out of what I could have gotten for planting. Therefore, says Rav Papa, everyone would agree that I should be able to go ahead and take the shevach in that case. So right, what was your loss? So yadid pasta, right? Okay, you could have grown as pasta. So okay, so take what you could have grown there, then don't take the shevach of the saplings. Oh no, pork marishka rabbi, right? Well, I could have used the space to do something that was more profitable. I could have grown saffron there. Right? No, we see that by the fact that you said that you could have grown something else and you didn't there. So we see that you only did it for the wood there. So shakal kurkma rishka bazil. We see that since you could have planted something else, you didn't really go ahead and intend to grow these saplings, which was expensive, and you get that amount. Rather, you were growing for something else. You never intended for this to grow and to get the shevach of this. Therefore, we'll only go ahead and give you something cheap that would have grown in that space. Rabibi Barabai Kabul Ara the Adarle Mishnisa. So Rabibi Barabai, he went ahead and the Kablanas, he took a field, and over there was basically the border, the rock, that was there, I guess, away from the wind or whatever, it got exposed, and now it was going through, throughout the land. So Kadchube Zardasa, and a tree, right? A tree grew from there. Give me the shevach of the tree that grew on the rocky area. So he wanted that. So right? Because you come from the Mumloi, those were mixed up from Eliak Kohen, right? You also said something, apparently, mumbo jumbo, just like your yichus mumbo jumbo. Only Rav Papa says you get the open area, something, a tree grew there because of open area, because you had a loss. You could have planted something else over there. However, but over here, right, it was where it grew from a rock. You weren't able to grow something from the rock. Therefore, you should have no rights to any shevach of anything over there. And Rav Yosef, so now, there were planters and there were sharecroppers. Okay, let's just get this, understand this case real quick. So a planter, basically, he puts in all the he puts in all the effort, right? And he goes ahead and he gets one half. But a person would take something who's a sharecropper, then the sharecropper who just worked the field, not go ahead and plant, do everything else, would only get a third. Now let's see what's going on here. So he had a person who was planting. So Shachiv the Shavik Hamisha Chasanot. Right. So the guy died and he left over. He had 5 daughters, and he had basically 5 son-in-laws who basically says, okay, well, our father-in-law, the planter, he died. We're going to go ahead and take over. So Amar Ada, So Rav Yosef said, I don't really want 5 to deal with 5 people. And up until now, I had 1. Now I have 5. Until now, the buck stopped with 1 person, so he'll get everything done. However, but now when you got 5 people, everyone's going to point the finger and say, no, that's your job, that's your job. I don't want to go ahead, and it'll be half said, I don't want to deal with this.
Do sons inherit their father's position in this? Father died, he's the planter.
Right. So basically the planter works there, right, up until his plantings, all the seasons that goes out. Let's say it was a vineyard, right? So the vines, they come back a certain amount of years. Certain things come back until you got to go ahead and start over. So basically, it was up until the end of the expected years. Right. So he's more of an investor in the area. Right. It's not just like a paycheck, a day work.
For the son boss, they just
They tried to in this case, right? But he was able to push him out.
No,
Yeah.
there are no sons here apparently, no daughters.
Right. Yeah. So let's say that. Let's do the second. All right, Rashi says, all right, right, it was upon him to be there all the days, all the years, and then take them, right? So, but assuming that there were no sons, and they were going to go ahead and step in for dad. So he told them, I don't want it. So he said to them, if you go ahead and take your improvements to the land and leave, then we're good. But if not, if you guys give me a hard time, you want to stick around, I'm going to kick you out. Now I'm going to kick you out, but you're not going to get any of the improvements. Hi, Shatolo, a planter that died. Yershim delay, right? His Yershim, his those inherit him, they can be kicked out, right, without any of the improvements. So he could have kicked him out. However, Vlad Milsi, that was not necessarily stated as a fact that he can remove without any shadow. If the guy says, if I go ahead and be mafsid you, if I cause you a loss, then Misakina, I'll go ahead and I'll leave. So Afsid. So what does this guy do? Of course, he caused him a loss. And he leaves without taking any of the improvements. He doesn't even get half. And Rav Kana Omar, no. He does go ahead and is removed because he had a loss. And he does take payment for the improvements he did. Obviously, he has to cover the loss, but he also takes the shadows. But if the guy says, hey, if I make improvements, if I cause a loss, then you kick me out without any of my improvements, then you talk, listen to him. And Rav Omar, no, that's an asmach evil, asmach lo kind. When the guy said that, so we remove him, but he still does go ahead and get the improvements. The one says, what we saw earlier in previous Mishnah, the guy said, if I don't go ahead and do any improvements, right, if I don't work the land, and I'm supposed to be a sharecropper, then I'll pay you X amount. So he has to go ahead and pay him b'meitav. So why is that different? In that case, he has to pay him b'meitav. But over here, he says, if I cause a loss, right, you can kick me out without any shevach. So Gemara says, no, Hassam, over there, my Deipsid, Mishalim, over there, he was paying for his actual losses. I didn't work the field. We're on the bottom of Kuftas Samadal, 4 lines in the bottom. So he says over there, the sharecropper caused a loss by not doing it. Therefore, he has to go ahead and pay that which he actually caused. Over here, right? In other words, we should just deduct his losses. He shouldn't be able. That which he says, I'm going to walk away with nothing, is more than the actual losses he caused, and therefore, since it wasn't dollar for dollar, it was a guzma, it was a smakta, something that he didn't really think to do because that wouldn't be fair. Runya Shatola de Ravina Havi. So Runya, I feel like we just had that name before. Didn't we have the name Runya? One of the mice before? I don't know. So Runya, so he was a Shatola of Ravina. Right? He was the planter for Ravina. And obviously he caused a loss. And it was so what did Ravina do? Salike, he removed him. Asla kamei to Rava Amarle Mar Chazi Mai Kovid Mar. So he said, so he came, Saruna came before Rava, and he said, look what he did. He kicked me out without giving me. Samarle Shapi Avad. No, he was right for kicking you out and not giving you the Sheva. Samarle. Hello, Asrabi, he never warned me. Samarle, light sikla hasras. He doesn't have to go ahead and give. And this is what Randy was complaining about. And Rava Latame, and Rava goes to Shidasa, you don't need a warning. Why? Because the Rava says, Makri Dardiki, unless you consider yourself children, right? So a person who goes ahead and a school teacher, or a shatala, or a planter, or a tafka, or a butcher, v'umna, either a bloodletter, or some say a male, the safar, masa, right? And the male, right? And the safar masya, and the town Seifer, Kulam, right? All of them are basically considered to be forewarned. In other words, any mistake that they do is really a permanent mistake, and therefore they don't give strikes, right? It's you're one and done, right? Anybody who basically does a mistake and it's not cannot be corrected, that cannot be reversed. So such a case, he could be one and done.
These people have to be perfectionists.
What was that?
These people
What
have
was that?
to.
What?
The teachers included in that. You do a mistake you can't correct. That's
Right. So maybe it could be because of Dardiki, maybe because of children, school children, the first impression when they're young, maybe it's tough to correct.
Teacher hit them.
Yeah, I turned them off. Yeah, I hear.
No, I'm saying they injured them.
Yeah, I'm saying right. Yeah, I hear.
I don't know.
She trusts her cave and dull. Right. It's a mistake. And once it's in, that's it. Like it's, you can't change your first impression. So what were we saying?
No, that they have to be perfectionists. And they have to.
Exactly. So how?
But a self-parent, he can, if he writes
Right.
the wrong letter, he can.
Right. So maybe two things. Maybe right. If it's mass produced or something. Yeah, I hear. All right. How should tell Damarlu? Havuli Shifkai. So as a planter who said, give me my Shevach. The Bina Lamisig D'Israel. I want to go ahead and move there to Israel. Also come in Papa Vashil. Amaru Havule Shifche. Go ahead and give him his Shevach. And Amarle Rava. So says Rava, Iu ish. So he says Iu ishbiach, right? Arlo ishbiach. Why should he get the improvements, right? The land didn't do anything. The land also improved this. Amarle Ana Pauga the Shiva Kamin. I said, don't give him all the improvements. Give him half the improvements. So Amarle, I understand. Adi, Havi Shakil Balabais Palgo. Now I took half the Shatola Palgo, and then he took the other half, right? So we're soon going to see. So Hashda boy Lamisev Manasa Larise. But now, so if he gets half, but now I got someone coming in, and now this person is going to come in. He's not coming in for free. He's going to need his own take. So we will soon see. Let's pretend the number is 6, right? 6 bushels, right? So if he gets 3 and I get 3, but now I got to pay someone. Someone's going to go ahead and take a portion, right? So then he's going to take a third of mine, a third of 3. He's going to take one. I'm only on number 2. Samarle. So what do he say when he says he takes a portion? He says Ravia de Shivcha Kamina. He takes that. What he takes is only 1/4, or now he takes 1/4 of what he was supposed to. 1/4 of what he's supposed to take. What do you mean? What's going on here? So he doesn't take half the bonus, he takes a quarter of the bonus. So that is actually 1/6, right? That is 1/6. So in this case, in other words, that if his shevach was a half, right? In other words, that the improvements were instead of being
of the total.
What is it?
Was 50% of the total.
No, that was supposed to be the total amount, but now he's only getting a 6. Why is that? But also the shakel shatala palga of arise tilsa in a place where the planter takes a half. The planter takes a half because he did it, but a sharecropper only takes a third. Hi shatal the boilie stoic. So a planter goes ahead and leaves. Yavinale shivcho misafkinale. In order now that there is no loss. Now remember, the owner needs to end up with 3, right? Because that was supposed to be his portion from before. Now, so what did we say over there? The only way for him to end up with 3 is for him, the other guy, to be able to take more from before. Now, if you say that a quarter is meaning really is a 1/6 Shapir Eli Amarta Revia Mamish Komati Lepsida Labalabai Paga Danka, because he really only takes a 6. Why? Because if he goes ahead and takes a quarter, leaving the other guy with now who to do the other guy, in other words, he takes, let's say, 2 out of the 6, and he leaves himself 4 out of the 6, right? And he has to pay someone a third for 4 out of the 6. So he's left off with, he has to give a quarter from there. So therefore he ends up with losing. He doesn't get 3, he gets less than 3 because the sharecropper needs more. So therefore, but if the other guy only took a 6, right? And then the sharecropper comes, it takes a quarter, right? Which is a total of the 6. Therefore, he ends up with the Balachatzer ends up with a total of 3 out of 6, and therefore, because he will get 3 out of 6, the sharecropper will get 1 out of 6, another guy will get 2 out of 6, 2 6. Right? Eli Marta Riva Mash. He said, right, then he'd be master the Balabais. So Kamati Lapsila the Balabais, Palgadanka, then he would lose in other words a half of a 6, which would be 1/12. And therefore, since we don't do that, so therefore he takes 1/2. His shevach is really a quarter. And he said, but you took right from 3/4 of the vines. So he says, understand, you go ahead and you take your 30 and take outside of that. But if you go ahead and pay outside of that, then I should take more. Now, since the landowner, right, is now taking 4.5, because a third of 4.5 is a third of 4.5 is 1.5. That remains him with 3, right? So instead of taking 1/6, right, he should be able to take, right, 1.56, or instead of, we'll do it by 12ths, right? Instead of taking 2/12ths, right, then you should be able to take 3/12ths, because then the sharecropper working the other 9, right, a third of that is 3, and therefore the owner would end up with his 6, right? His sharecropper that he has to hire now because I'm leaving is also, he gets paid, right, 3 out of 12, and then I should get 3 out of 12. I should get 3 out of 12 and not 2 out of 12, the sharecropper. So therefore, you're actually, by giving him only a quarter, you're gaining more. So it shouldn't be that way. So Amar Kimatis L'Shchias Kachim it says, basically, it was a good point. It says when you get to Kachim, when you with your sharp skills, then we'll go ahead and learn that. But Lamaisa, you had a good argument there, because the whole argument is that the sharecropper needs to, the Balabais needs to be complete. Then he should really give him, right, the 3/4 of the field, and give the other guy a quarter of the total amount, not a quarter of what was remaining, and therefore not a half of a half, but rather a quarter of the whole thing. And then therefore the Balabais would end up with half, and the sharecropper and the original planter would each end up with a quarter. So
I got lost there. The sharecropper.
What? The planter. Oh, wait, we got to stop in a minute. Let's just go a little weiter after 1 minute. Let's just go a little weiter, and then we're going to stop soon. So Gufa, so in a place where the planter goes ahead and takes a half, and Aris takes a third. So I Shatala, the boy leaves to if he wants to go ahead and leave Yavinale, Shivche Masakinale. He has to go ahead and give he gets his share of the shevach, and then he can leave. In order the balabais should not go ahead and take a loss, like we just said. He takes a certain amount, that the amount he gets will cover the extra expense of having an aris. And Amram, you'll be ready to have Nechumya, so Kupas Sava. Palga, when it comes to a vine that is no longer useful, so that is Palga, that he gets half. However, Shatanara, but if let's say the river washes it away, which is unexpected, then Riva, he only gets a quarter of it, because that was not something that was expected. It was only the expected stuff. He split 50-50, but not something that was not. All right, I guess we'll stop here, because Shach is in a minute. So what happened over there was